Hello everyone, here Joey Knight Jr. back with another video for JKJ Culture, and today is going to be a first time video for me as I am doing a overview of a TV series, and not just any TV series, Dragon Ball GT. Yes, the ever controversial Dragon Ball GT anime, and I say controversial because I've noticed that there is a love and a hate relationship with this anime. There are fans in the Dragon Ball community that love this anime, and then there are fans in the Dragon Ball community that do not like Dragon Ball GT. And what I've noticed is that the people who don't like Dragon Ball GT are generally, I'm speaking in general terms here, the people who don't like Dragon Ball GT fall in that category of they were young adults and adults when Dragon Ball GT premiered, but they were kids whenever OG Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z was on. So there's that pile. And then the people that love GT were probably the people, well, I've noticed generally, are the people who were kids when Dragon Ball GT came out, or they were kids whenever reruns were going on. So I feel it's one of those, if you love it, it's probably because you have nostalgia attached to it as being a young child, and if you don't like it, it's probably because you were a young adult who was watching this after Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. So, what better perspective than someone who has really no attachment, I would say, in terms of nostalgia goggles, to a majority of Dragon Ball. Let me get into that. So, my relationship with Dragon Ball Z is this, or, well, the Dragon Ball franchise as a whole, I should say. Because growing up, I just knew Dragon Ball Z. I know as a kid, I was watching Dragon Ball Z with excitement and glee in my eyes. I watched the entire series, I watched all the movies as a kid, and it was awesome. But for many, many years, I did not know that there was a OG Dragon Ball series where you saw Goku as a kid and he met Krillin and Master Roshi and Bulma and Yamcha and Tien and all these other people for the very first time. I did not know that existed for many, many years. And then I didn't know the existence for Dragon Ball Super for a little bit, and I found out about its existence, and I was just kind of like, I don't know. But then finally, I ultimately made the decision of, you know what? I am going to watch everything. Why? Because I got the nostalgia to watch Dragon Ball Z once again, but now knowing that there was a OG Dragon Ball show, and there's a Dragon Ball Super show happening after the events of Dragon Ball Z, what does any sane man do? They spend the next 2 or 3 months binge watching everything. And that's exactly what I did about a year and a half ago. I went through everything. I went through OG Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, and then, the Dragon Ball Super movies after that. And then I watched Daima, and then I finally watched the Dragon Ball Z movies, well, rewatched them, which, speaking of things that cannot be considered canon, that now leads us to Dragon Ball GT. And the reason I held off on watching Dragon Ball GT until very recently was because I was told by everyone that it is not considered canon. Well, even though it is not considered canon, I decided to finally watch Dragon Ball GT, especially because I wanted to see why this show was so controversial, and also because for some reason my For You page on TikTok and Instagram and things of that nature was showing me clips of Dragon Ball GT, and of course, the first thing I see is the ending of Dragon Ball GT, and I need to know the context of why that happened. So what does a sane man do when he needs the context of an episode from a TV show? He watches the whole TV show so he can get every single ounce of possible context that there could be. So let's dive into it, ladies and gentlemen. There are 4 sagas within the 64 episodes of Dragon Ball GT. We have the Black Star Saga, we have the Baby Saga, we have the Super Android 17 Saga, and then we have the Shadow Dragon Saga. But let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen, my overview for Dragon Ball GT, and does it deserve all the negative comments that it gets? Let's see. Now, if you want to look at or watch a more, dare I say, entertaining and most definitely in-depth review of Dragon Ball GT, I recommend going to any of these channels you see right now on the screen and check out their videos over Dragon Ball GT, as I had a blast watching them after watching the Dragon Ball GT series before making this video. But now let's get into it. With every single saga that went through Dragon Ball GT, I felt like there was potential. There was potential for something great in every single saga of this anime, of this show, but for some reason, just the writing prevented it at points of just reaching that full potential. Because I do feel that there are great episodes in the show, there are great moments in the show, but it's always undercut by a very dumb decision, in my opinion, throughout the show. Now, I do understand, apparently from what I was reading, that the creators of Dragon Ball GT, they wanted to go with the feel of OG Dragon Ball, while also having the high stakes of Dragon Ball GT, which is completely fine. I am completely okay with that type of show. I felt like it accomplished those things at points and junctures of the show, but like I said, just the overall feeling of the show is that just wasted potential. If I could describe Dragon Ball GT in 2 words, it is wasted potential. Let's get on to the fact of the characters in Dragon Ball GT. Now, Dragon Ball GT, especially at the beginning, is mainly focused around Pan, Trunks, and Kid Goku, which, okay, that has legs, in my opinion. But obviously, with the new focus being on new characters for the most part, or characters that didn't get that type of focus before in Dragon Ball Z, characters are going to take a back burner. But, man, the type of back burner some of these characters were on in Dragon Ball GT was just criminal. I mean, I know that they're just humans and everything, and once we, up the stakes in the Dragon Ball universe, and we definitely see that in Super, but Yamcha and Tien, I don't even recall them getting any type of lines in the show. Like, they just get like a couple of like cameos and they do the little grunts, you know, or for happy noises. Piccolo, oh my goodness, Piccolo may be the biggest character assassination in this whole show. Like, what are we doing? And then Krillin and 18 basically don't exist until parts of the Baby and Super Android 17 saga. They really did my boy Krillin dirty. Yes, I am a Krillin fan. I will not be ashamed of it. Just, I don't know what to think about the show at times. It goes back to the two words, wasted potential. And now once we do get to the Baby and the Super Android 17 and the Shadow Dragon sagas, we do get to see more of the characters like Goten, Gohan, and Vegeta. They do get to play more of a role within the show. So that is good, because when I tell you, when I was going through the Black Star Dragon Ball saga and the lack of Vegeta, Goten, and Gohan on my screen was quite concerning, in my opinion. But let's get back to the whole Piccolo situation, how he's probably the most character-assassinated character in Dragon Ball GT. So, Piccolo only does two things of note in this show, and that is he sacrifices himself so that way the Black Star Dragon Balls can no longer exist, and he angers King Yama to the point that he gets sent from heaven to hell so that way he can help Goku get out of hell during the Super Android 17 saga arc. And that is literally the only two things he does of note in the show, and neither thing has to happen. Like, okay, you can make an argument that, okay, like he had to sacrifice himself for the Black Star Dragon Balls, destroy them, so that way no one can ever use them again, even though I feel like there's a completely possible workaround onto, like, maybe we just better protect the Black Star Dragon Balls, you know? Maybe, just call me crazy there. But the sending yourself to hell so Goku can get out of hell, I don't know, like when I watched that, I was thinking to myself, couldn't Goku just easily transform into Super Saiyan 4 and get himself out of hell? And listen, I know I'm kind of like jumping from spot to spot. Like I said, this is my first time doing like a overview of a TV show type of video. Like I said, I showcased channels who did way better ones, way more entertaining ones earlier. I'm not going with a script at all. I'm kind of just going with how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking in the moment. I'm doing this very raw. Who knows, maybe in the future I'll be more precise and have a script to better concisely. I'll write one down so that way everything flows potentially better. We'll see. But I know I haven't been paying GT in the best of light, so I will give a positive or two with this show. And the main positive I want to talk about is that absolute fire of an intro for Dragon Ball GT. Now, I watched it on Hulu, so I don't know if there was like a different version when the show first aired, but the version of the intro that is on Dragon Ball GT on Hulu is absolute fire. It is so good. It got me hyped every single episode. But let's get back to one of the more frustrating parts about GT, at least to me. Hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and double it up and talk about two things, because I was going to go into the main event for this video, but then I remembered one minor? No, it can't even be a minor issue because she's one of the main characters, and that is Pan. Pan, for a great portion of this show, is just extremely annoying. And there are times where there's character development with Pan that just completely disappears within the next episode, and that was frustrating at times when watching the show. And I won't even get into the fact or the debate of, is it a 5-year time jump or a 10-year time jump between the end of Z and the start of Dragon Ball GT. My personal opinion, I think the 10-year time jump makes way more sense when you look at how the kids of Dragon Ball Z age, when you're talking about Bola and Pan and Goten and Trunks. To me, the 10-year time jump makes a little more sense. But now the main event of this video. The reason why I decided to sit down and watch all 64 episodes of Dragon Ball GT in the first place. And that is the ending, ladies and gentlemen. So after Goku defeats Super Shenron, and the Dragon Balls are restored, Shenron appears, heals Goku, and then Goku leaves with Shenron as Shenron takes the Dragon Balls away from Earth, because the reason all the Shadow Dragons even appeared in the first place because the Dragon Balls were highly abused with all the wishes everyone on Earth was making. They weren't meant to be found that often, be found that quickly. It was meant to be a thing that was like considered sacred, and maybe people didn't make a wish on them, you know, every like 200, 300 years because of all the negative energy that gets released with inside the balls. So, with that, and Shenron being recovered, the Dragon Balls being recovered to their normal state, Goku leaves with Shenron and the Dragon Balls. And even though that fits within Goku's character to leave all of his friends and family behind and become one with the Dragon Balls, become one with Shenron, as we saw at the end of the show, just the way they did it is what got me, and getting the context of the show and getting the full context of the episode and afterwards did not help. Because all I ever saw, what started this whole journey was just seeing, you know, Goku get on Shenron and then disappear with inside Shenron after the Dragon Balls disappeared with inside Goku. And that was the only clip I ever saw, and I need the context of that. And the context does not help the situation, in my opinion. Because, like I said, even though it fits within Goku's character to do something like that, we didn't really get an explanation as to why Goku had to do that. Now, they would have just simply said something, you know, along the lines of that, oh, Shenron needs Goku to come with him, have the Dragon Balls be absorbed inside Goku, so that way the positive energy of Goku, completely heals and completely, balances out the Dragon Balls. Okay, we can work with that and we can go with that. But we didn't really get any type of explanation as to why Goku had to leave with Shenron in the show. And on top of that, outside of Goku visiting Hell to say bye to Piccolo, and he stopped by the Kami house to say bye to Master Roshi and have one last fight with Krillin and say bye to Krillin, he didn't say bye to a single person. Not a one. He's like, bye everybody, see y'all later. But there was like no heartfelt goodbye to Trunks, Chi-Chi, Bulma, Vegeta, Goten, Gohan, Videl, Pan. No one. The only people that got like some type of heartfelt goodbye was Piccolo, Krillin, and Master Roshi, which that's good. At least they got, a heartfelt goodbye. But also when you think about the context of that none of those characters really had any importance with inside of Dragon Ball GT, it's like, why those characters of all the characters got the goodbye from Goku? I mean, it's a nice nod to the OG Dragon Ball fans, but I don't know, that just frustrated me watching that. Because, and I'm repeating myself here, but even though that's something that, Goku would do, leave with Shenron and make that sacrifice, we couldn't have, gotten an explanation. We couldn't have gotten a nice, heartfelt goodbye to everyone like we did in previous times when Goku did leave. We couldn't have gotten that. Like something that would have only taken about 3 minutes. We couldn't have fit that in the show. I don't know. That just really frustrated me watching that. But ladies and gentlemen, I feel that y'all have probably heard me ramble enough about Dragon Ball GT. I just really wanted to make this video, test something out new for the JKJ Culture channel. Maybe I'll do this again, but maybe not with TV shows, especially, once we get into the world of more longer form, longer lasting TV shows, because I know the show was only 64 episodes. But who knows, maybe when, I decide to plan these things out better and, actually write out scripts so that way maybe things will stay more constructive. Maybe we'll keep doing TV shows, but who knows, maybe I'll do things like this when it comes to movies that I've never seen, because, I don't want to call myself uncultured, but there are plenty of movies in this world that I've never seen and I probably should have already seen by now. But that's neither here nor there. Overall, with Dragon Ball GT, I'm not going to say it was great, but I don't want to say it was bad either. I'm kind of in that, it's mid. It's just mid territory. It doesn't deserve to be canon either, so, nor is it. I don't think there's a way you can make this show canon with, the events of Super going on. I don't think this show could be considered canon, nor does the show deserve to be canon. It's just mid, in my opinion. It's not great, but it's not bad. But despite it being mid, it made me just feel like all those emotions that we went through within this video that I explained. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Dragon Ball GT. Like I said, not the most in-depth overview of Dragon Ball GT. I gave the examples of videos and channels earlier in the video. If y'all want to go watch those, those were great videos. I had a ball watching those before filming this one. But yeah, I just wanted to let my opinion known be on Dragon Ball GT. Let me know in the comments below what your opinions are on Dragon Ball GT. Do you think it's sucked and it's the second worst thing ever made in Dragon Ball history, right behind the Dragon Ball live-action movie, which we shall never speak of again other than that comment? Or are you one of the people that thinks, hey, Dragon Ball GT was peak and I don't care what anyone says? Or are you kind of like me and you're just like, it's mid? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Joey Knight Jr., this has been JKJ Culture, and we will see y'all in the next one. Peace.